Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this webinar on exploring career and professional development opportunities in the arts, humanities, museums, libraries, and history sectors. This webinar is being hosted by the Arts, Humanities, and History Cluster of the White House Initiative on Advancing Educational Equity, Excellence, and Economic Opportunity through Historically Black Colleges and Universities. Before we start, I would just like to say that any of us who have been watching the news have seen that a number of HBCUs have received bomb threats over the past several days. Many of our registrants are at HBCUs. And I must start by saying that those of us who are participating are so disappointed and incredibly saddened to hear about this. Today marks the first day of Black History Month for 2022. We are so honored to be here with you, and we thank you for taking the time to join us. We honor the contributions and sacrifices of African Americans who have helped to shape our nation and who will continue to do so. The federal agencies that make up this cluster are the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. I'm Susan Glimsher from the ACHP. We are an independent federal agency that promotes the economic, educational, environmental, and cultural values of historic preservation. We advise the President and Congress on national historic preservation policy. The ACHP is comprised of 24 statutorily designated members, and we are the only federal agency whose sole mission is historic preservation. A large part of our work is overseeing the Section 106 review process created by the National Historic Preservation Act, which requires federal agencies and those receiving federal funding or federal licensure to consider historic preservation when carrying out an undertaking. Now let's hear from our other cluster members. First, I'll introduce Tamika Shingler from the National Endowment for the Arts. Tamika.
Thank you, Susan. I am Tamika Shingler. I serve as the Museums and Visual Arts Specialist at the Endowment. I'm grateful to be here today, and thank you for those who have joined. As Susan stated, we understand that there is something going on that is unprecedented. So our thoughts are with you during this time. The National Endowment for the Arts is an independent federal agency supporting the arts in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and U.S. territories. Through our programs, the NEA encourages activities that rebuild the creative economy and educate the next generation, unite and heal the nation through the arts, and serve the nation's arts field. We are committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and fostering mutual respect for the diverse beliefs and values of all individuals and groups. We award grants to nonprofit organizations for arts projects in 15 artistic disciplines and fields, such as music, museums, and visual arts. We also support individuals through literature fellowships for published creative writers and translators. And we support research that investigates the value and/or impact of the arts and research labs, which funds transdisciplinary research teams grounded in the social and behavioral sciences. You can visit our website, arts.gov/grants, to learn more about all of our grant opportunities. As part of our grants process, we rely on panels composed of individuals who represent a broad range of artistic and cultural viewpoints, as well as wide geographic and ethnic diversity, to provide advice about the artistic excellence and artistic merit of proposals. We highly encourage participants to serve as panelists and learn more about our process. The link is being provided in the chat, or you can email hbcu@arts.gov to let us know your interest in becoming a panelist. Most recently, we've been expanding our outreach to HBCUs. Our vision is that over time, that every historically Black college and university successfully applies for funding opportunities. In order to accomplish this, we have been providing technical assistance to HBCUs on developing competitive applications, sharing critical resources and information, and exploring new ways of improving the relationships between HBCUs and federal agencies and organizations. Please visit the NEA's website at arts.gov for more information about our agency, and be sure to take a look at the HBCU page that includes our visions, goals, and recent grants that have been awarded to HBCUs and more. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamika. And I would like to ask our federal agency partners to please put a URL to your own agency in the chat so folks are able to go right there if they would like to check out what you're saying. Next, I would like to introduce Mary Macklem from the National Endowment from the Humanities. Mary.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's a delight to be here today. Thank you all for coming today. I'm here today on behalf of the National Endowment for the Humanities. I'm a senior program officer there. And the National Endowment for the Humanities, or NEH, is a small federal agency created in 1965 to support all areas of the humanities. NEH supports research and learning in history, literature, religion, philosophy, and other areas of the humanities by funding selected peer-reviewed proposals from around the nation. The agency offers grant programs in the areas of humanities research, education, preservation and access, public programming, digital humanities, and infrastructure. We offer more than 35 grant programs for both institutions and for individuals, and HBCUs or their staff are encouraged to apply to most of these programs and are eligible to do so. NEH also offers 2 programs specifically designed for faculty and staff at HBCUs. One is called the Humanities Initiatives at HBCUs, which supports curriculum development, teaching, and study at HBCUs. And the other program designated specifically for HBCUs is Awards for Faculty at HBCUs. This program supports individuals working on humanities research projects, such as books or articles. And additional information about the National Endowment for the Humanities and its grant programs and its peer review process and all the other topics that you might be interested in, it's available at our website at neh.gov. Please feel free to reach out to NEH staff. We are always happy to take your questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mary. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Sarah Fuller from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Sarah. Sarah, I'm wondering if you are muted or if it's okay.
Can you hear me now? Great. Okay. I'm Sarah Fuller. I'm with the Institute of Museum and Library Services. As all my colleagues have mentioned, our hearts go out to all of you at HBCUs nationwide. And, you know, we certainly recognize the importance of this month and the importance of celebrating the contributions of African Americans every single month. I am a senior program officer in the Office of Library Services at the Institute of Museum and Library Services. We are the primary source of federal support for the nation's libraries and museums. We advance, support, and empower America's museums, libraries, and related organizations through grant making, research, and policy development. And our vision is a nation where museums and libraries work together to transform the lives of individuals and our communities. So we have a number of grant programs on both the library and museum sides that support HBCUs. I'm just going to highlight two really quickly. Our Laura Bush 21st Century Librarian Program supports the development of a diverse workforce of librarians and archivists in order to meet the information needs of their communities and enhance the training and professional development of library and archives professionals. So this includes faculty and staff, and it also includes pipeline programs that support high school, undergraduate, and graduate students. So recently through our Laura Bush program, we funded a leadership development program through the HBCU Library Alliance and Brown University. This is a 2-year program for emerging library leaders where they will basically be doing an internship exchange program that's focused on archives and on social justice work. In the museum office, we also have a number of grant programs. One program is the Museum Grants for African American History and Culture, which supports activities that build the capacity of African American museums and supports the growth and development of museum professionals at African American museums. And in 2020, we funded Morgan State University to implement a comprehensive interpretive project that's based on archival collections that document the life and work of Ellen Irene Diggs, who was the first African-American woman to earn a doctorate in anthropology. This involves an internship program for more than 40 undergraduate and graduate students and volunteers, and will focus on archival research, preservation, and anthropology. So those are just two examples of the types of programs that we support, and I encourage all of you to be in touch with us, and if you have an interest in reviewing, to also reach out to me as well, and I'll put my contact information in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamika, Mary, and Sarah. We are all so lucky to have such a great team to work with, and it's a joy to work with every one of you. This session will provide useful information on how to explore careers in all of these fields, whether you are a student, an educator, or a staff member. And there are careers available, jobs available in all of these fields. Our presenters will also address the ways that federal government supports professional development for HBCU faculty and leadership working in these areas. We'll have 2 panels during this webinar. The first will consist of young professionals who will give you an overview of their career paths and some tips on how to navigate your way into these fields. The second group of panelists will connect you with career and professional development resources. Please put any questions, suggestions, or comments in the chat box or in the Q&A box. Either one is fine. We will give you permission to turn on your cameras and your microphones, or just your microphones if you prefer, at the end of the session so that you can ask the panel members your questions directly. Now I'd like to introduce our Young Professionals panel. Simone Booker Isham is a recent graduate with a Master of Arts in Art Management from American University in Washington, D.C. Simone is Assistant Manager, Marketing, Social Media, and Social Impact at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. Sterling Warren is an Applied Public History Fellow with the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. He has an MA in Museum Studies and Historical Preservation from Morgan State University. Emily Choi is a Historic Preservation Specialist at the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation and a graduate of Georgetown Law School. And I'm sorry, I lost my third page. And Landy Watley earned a BA in English at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff and a PhD in English at Howard University, specializing in contemporary African American literature. She serves as a program officer in the Division of Research on the Sustaining the Humanities through the American Rescue Plan initiative at the National Endowment for the Humanities. So now I would like to start by calling on our speakers, and we'll start with Simone. Simone, are you with us? There you are.
Sorry about that. You would think we all have Zoom down by now. Hello, everyone. My name is Simone Booker Isham, and I'm so excited to be here today to talk about my background in arts and arts administration. So I do have a few slides that I'm going to go ahead and present. Give me 1 second to share my screen. Alrighty. Okay, again, my name is Simone Booker Isham, and I am an arts administrator. So I am originally from North Carolina, and I attended, I'll give you a little bit of my background, and then we'll go into what I'm doing now. So just a little bit of my background. I'm from North Carolina, and I attended Florida A&M in Tallahassee. I went there with the ambition of starting a career in journalism, in public relations, but I took my first PR class and I hated it, and I quickly shifted gears and started my career in arts in the art world. So I ended up finishing school in North Carolina for personal reasons. I had to come back, and I went to UNC Wilmington, but I will always be a Rattler at heart. And then most recently, I just got my master's in arts management at American University. So I'm very happy to have that accomplishment. So a little bit more about my background and how I got here. I knew from a very young age that I wanted to work in the art and be an artist, and I just didn't know what that really looked like, which I'm sure is a lot of people who decide to go into that field, to go into art, just not really sure what that looks like. So, but I knew that art was my passion, and that there had to be a way for me to figure this out. So the more experience I got, the more I was able to move around and navigate. So I have a few tips, and I'll talk more about my experience, my work, my professional experience as I go through these tips. So my first pro tip, fellowships and internships are key. I know we all joke about seeing entry-level positions where you're requiring 5 to 6 years of work experience. Well, since I was able to do a fellowship every year of high school, my senior year of high school and every year of undergrad, and continuing fellowships into my graduate level education, I was able to join the workforce with a solid background. So there are many, many, many resources to find internships, to find fellowships. I was on the attack. I would go to look at institutions that I admired or liked and wanted to work for, and I would hunt down and I had MoMA on my MoMA alerts set to my phone so that I could try to apply to MoMA all the time in different institutions. But internships are really key. It's where you get that experience, but you also get to try out different fields. Like I said, when I first graduated with a studio arts degree in painting, wasn't really sure what I could do with that. But through internships in cultural diplomacy, in museums, I worked for an art consultant. You know, these different areas, I got to really figure out where my space was, and I figured out that arts administration was the way I wanted to go, as opposed to more of the curatorial side. So just feeling it out, like when you're in undergrad, that's where you have the chance to just try everything and then go from there. So internships are key. Second pro tip, we all are familiar with this phrase, jack of all trades, but just learning, you know, this is piggybacking off of the internships, just really learning a little bit about everything. And then once you've kind of figured out what you're good at, figured out what you're interested in, really honing in on those skills, being strategic about the jobs that you choose, about the skills you acquire, about the people you connect yourself with, just really being strategic of how you want to place your career. So of course, there are all types of things that happen. Personal experience, I had to take some time off from the arts, but I still got a job in administration. So the skills I acquired there were transferable to when I came back to the arts. So a lot of the work that we do as arts administrators is administrative and paperwork and the skills that you acquire in other fields, but we're just making art happen as we do it. So just being strategic about the skills you acquire. And then my last pro tip, which I hope everyone recognizes this geeky Hamilton reference, but just really assembling, we had this phrase in grad school where we would call it our personal executive board. So this is the executive, the people that you surround yourself with, the people networking, not just to advance your own career, but to actually build relationships. So these are the key players you want to have in any executive board. So you need the mentor who will be there to support you, who's older than you, more advanced in your career, someone that you can look to for advice, for guidance when you have those, but actually building a relationship with that person. A peer, of course, someone on your level, someone you can relate to, someone that you can talk and share geeky, very specific memes with, who will understand when you are having a rough day, or someone who can be on a peer level with you, who if they see something or you can elevate and network sideways. And then you just need that supporter. You need someone who has no interest in investment other than your happiness, and there to support you in whatever endeavor you do. You need that for personal reasons and professional reasons. So that person can be anyone in your life, but just someone who is there strictly to support you. That is a key player. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to know more specifics about my career and my trajectory here. Again, just had the pleasure of working in all types of areas in arts management, and just really learning a lot. And in my current role at the Kennedy Center, I am working in the marketing department, and it's been a great ride. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to contact me.
Simone, thank you. Those are such important points, and I even underlined that in the chat.
Thank you.
So now I would like to ask Sterling to tell us a little bit about his career path and his tips.
Thank you, Susan, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the organizers of the event for inviting me today, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. And given the current public health situation and the situation at HBCUs, I hope we all remain healthy and safe. In the time that I have, I want to briefly review my journey from undergrad to where I am now, my kind of circuitous journey. But there are a few main points that I want to make. And here's the first one. None of what I've been able to achieve in my career thus far is solely due to my own effort. At every turn, I was aided by people who opened doors for me, gave me opportunities. Now, part of the responsibility is to be prepared when I get an opportunity and to do the best I can when it comes. But I think we should think about career paths not only as individual skill development, but even more importantly as community building practice. So, okay, here we go. I began as an undergrad at Howard University. I was studying film. I didn't really know what kind of filmmaker I wanted to be, but I was attracted to moving images and narrative and media technology. I enrolled in Haile Garima's Third World Cinema class, which really changed my outlook on how film could be used as a tool for community engagement. While at Howard, I wanted to find a job that would allow me to work around film. So I began managing the AFI Silver Theater in Silver Spring, where I kind of picked up some skills in leadership and also capacity building. I was still managing the theater when I graduated from Howard. And my idea was that I should pay off the schooling I had already had before I take any more schooling. So as the time arrived for me to for a change of both location and experience, I moved to Baltimore, where I had some friends, and I began working in a school, teaching in an aftercare program, and eventually becoming the director of the aftercare education program. There I learned how to structure a curriculum, project budgeting, and I got great practice in video production because it was a language immersion school for both Mandarin, Chinese, and Spanish. So every summer they had focused sessions on language and culture, for which I recorded and edited the videos. As I'm directing the aftercare education program, I actually finished paying off my undergraduate loans. So now I started thinking about graduate school. I saw that Morgan State had a museum studies and historical preservation program. And so I applied there and I got in. At this moment is when it really clicked for me that your educational experience is what you make it. I knew that before, but in graduate school, I really started to live by that. So as soon as I got to Morgan, I got active. I called the Office of Museums. I said, I'm a new graduate student. I want to work. I'll volunteer. I'll come in during the summer. Anything I can do to gain experience, I'll do it. And I began doing two things. One, at the James E. Lewis Museum of Art that's on campus, I began assisting the registrar in inventorying the collection and implementing a new accession numbering system. And then two, at the Lily Carroll Jackson Civil Rights Museum that's off campus, I began working with Dr. Iris Barnes, who was important to me and who really empowered me by making me an integral part of the reopening of that museum and giving me the large responsibility of programming the interactive kiosks, which meant that I was doing research on the Jackson family, on the Mitchell family, and selecting photos and documents and oral history sections that would be included into the kiosk system, and also working with the Morgan State media team to design the interface for the kiosk. Another point that I want to make here, a second point, is innovation and collaboration, because any place you are, whether a museum, university, library, or other institution, there are people around with all sorts of skills, interests. So you usually don't have to look very far to find knowledgeable collaborators to build projects with. Now, while I was still at Morgan State working in the Office of Museums, I began to do some internships. One was at the Maryland Historical Society, where I collected oral histories after the Freddie Gray uprisings. And then I also began an internship at Gallery Mertice. And Mertice Bedolla, who is a gallerist in Baltimore, is also a very important person in my career, because I began as her gallery assistant, but then as she learned of my interest in film, I eventually became the film curator for the gallery. And what this means is that we initiated a new program where I would program films as supplementary programming for the exhibitions of artists that she was doing in the gallery. As I'm interning and volunteering at the campus museums, I was keeping my eye out for jobs. The museum administration at Morgan is really good about sending around jobs to graduate students. And in one of these, I saw that the Walters Art Museum was looking for an assistant registrar. And I said a moment ago that at Morgan, I was already assisting the registrar there. So I applied for the Walters Art Museum assistant registrar job, and I got that. I spent 3 years at the Walters really learning the ropes of museum administration, everything from insurance to exhibition loans to conservation. I took courier trips to install artworks in Japan, France, the Netherlands. I learned a lot being there, and I was working directly with curators who were really at the top of their respective fields. But as I began to grow and I got a more clear idea of what I wanted, I realized that as a registrar, I was facilitating creative projects, which I found quite rewarding, but I also wanted to initiate and develop creative projects. So I began searching for opportunities that would allow me to design projects. I was looking at different institutions, and the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture was really at the top of my list. One day I was checking the website and I saw that they were initiating a new fellowship program centered on research, public outreach, and programming. When I read the description, I felt like I fit it, so I applied and I got it. And that's what I'm doing currently. And this has really been the best experience of my professional career thus far. And I'll just outline two projects that we're doing with the National Museum of African American History and Culture. One is we recently came back from Lawrenceville, Virginia, where we are working with an organization preserving the history of St. Paul's College, which was an HBCU that closed in 2013. We had a community archiving workshop there where we gave instruction on best preservation practices and also worked directly with the materials that they were trying to save and help them catalog and rehouse those materials. And it's an ongoing relationship. We're going to go back soon. We're talking to them constantly about how we can improve those systems. Another project that I'm doing is collaborating with the project on the history of Black writing at Kansas University. I'm developing a video narrative detailing the history of the project and how it has evolved over its lifespan. And the project on the history of Black writing is led by Dr. Mariam McGrahm, who is a great Black literature scholar, literary scholar. And what they're trying to do is document all Black writing in America from the earliest materials that can be found to today. So I'm very proud to be working on that project. So that's where I am now. I'll be a fellow with the Smithsonian for 1 more year, and then I'll be looking to continue my career by pursuing a PhD. Hopefully, I can also remain at the Smithsonian or enter academia, maybe becoming a professor of media studies or media history or museum studies at an HBCU, or possibly getting more into administration. I would love to speak to someone from the National Endowment of Arts or National Endowment of Humanities about continuing my career there and being able to initiate and facilitate creative, community-oriented projects. But through all of this, I'll continue my research and practice of using video as a tool for research and historical preservation. And I'll end just by saying a couple quick things. In everything I just said, I mentioned what I had applied for and got. I didn't mention all the things that I applied for that I didn't get, which was a lot. But that's part of the process. You apply for things, you don't get them. Just keep learning, keep educating yourself, keep yourself in the environment around your interests, and your opportunity will come. And part of that is staying informed, joining listservs, joining mailing lists, talking to your professors, talking to experts in the field, reaching out to people, not being afraid to reach out to people, because that's really where the opportunities come from, being enmeshed in these networks of support. And lastly, I'll say this, interrogation. We should be entering this field interrogating, questioning historical practices and historical institutions as they have been traditionally applied. The same way Clyde Taylor, Sylvia Winter, and Dr. Marimba Ani and others have questioned aesthetic practices and concepts. We see what's happening right now. Statues coming down, the banning of certain books, contested curricula in schools, labor struggles in museums. History is contested territory. And I won't mince words about that, but I don't say that in order to influence you to adopt an antagonistic approach as you enter this field, but only to highlight the openness of the current historical moment where traditional boundaries are being renegotiated, redrawn, and erased. We are at a special time in history right now where we are able to redefine what historical institutions and educational institutions are, what they can be, and how they can best serve people. And I think that is exactly what we should be doing. So with that, I'll end, and I'll put my email address in the chat if anyone wants to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sterling. That was wonderful, and you're absolutely right. For those of you who are looking to move into these careers, this is the time when you should be exploring, you should be questioning, and you should be thinking of the many, many different paths you should be taking. There'll be lots of time to settle down when you're older like me. Now I would like to introduce Emily Choi, a historic preservation specialist at the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. Emily.
Thank you, Susan. So as Susan just introduced, hello, my name is Emily Choi, and I'm very, very happy to be here to share how I found my path into doing what I love every day. And with that, it seems to make sense to start with, sharing what I'm doing now. I work at the ACHP with Susan, our moderator, although in separate offices. My office, the Federal Agency Programs, works, as its name implies, with other federal agencies that are undertaking or otherwise supporting land-based projects. And if you're interested in learning more about what the ACHP does, it's a really, really fascinating intersection of government regulation, industry interest, and preservation of our national heritage. And I'd love to tell you more about it, so please feel free to email me. And before I start, I just want to preface, I am feeling a bit under the weather today, so knowing that this session is recorded, I may have to go off camera to blow my nose at some point, but please excuse me. So going back in time quite a bit, when I was a college student at Cornell University, I really had no idea that historic preservation even existed. I was an English major, and I really just pursued what I wanted to do, those things being Irish literature and creative writing and poetry. So after college, I took 2 gap years, one as a Fulbright grantee in Taiwan, I taught English, and another working where I was working while preparing for law school. So law school. I'm not sure how many of you are considering law school, but the first piece of advice I would have is don't go unless you've really, sat down and thought hard about how and where you want to apply your legal license. And even if you change your mind, which I did, I had originally gone to law school wanting to be a foreign service officer at the State Department. And, obviously my mind changed. I mean, it's really tough to survive in such an intense environment without any kind of picture of success or accomplishment of what you want to do. And my second piece of advice concerning law school would be, I mean, spend all your time studying if you want, but I would really advise you to talk to the professors who just seem kind. And they don't even have to be your professors, even though that seems a little bit weird. And this is actually how I found historic preservation. I reached out to a professor who wasn't my personal professor, but he was writing these school-wide emails on some construction that was going on near my school, which is Georgetown University Law Center. And he'd write about all these things like the history of glass, the history of windows, history of concrete. And I just wrote back saying I really appreciated his factoids. And long story short, he introduced me to all his contacts in DC urban planning and policy, affordable housing, and historic preservation. And things kind of took off from there. And I'll sort of list my internships, as a lot of the substance is very technical and law or policy related. And I should also preface, I really tried to do everything in my internships. I just wanted to try everything out and really figure out what I like. So in my 2.5 years of interning as a law student, I ranged from local, state, federal, international organizations. I tried to, experience all these different vantage points of advocacy, government regulation, resource management. And again, please feel free to email me if any of these organizations pique your interest, as I'd be really happy to kind of point you out in a more specific direction about them. So my first legal internship in the summer between my first and second year, 1L and 2L, was at the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which is a national nonprofit. And this internship actually continued for the entirety of my second year at law school. So it was an internship during the summer and then an externship during the year. And among other things, I analyzed the intersection of affordable housing and historic preservation by researching local ordinances in 15 different cities in the US. And in the next summer, between my second and third years, I interned at the ACHP, my current organization. And as I mentioned, I'm currently in the Office of Federal Agency Programs, but during my internship, I was at the legal office, the Office of General Counsel. I was comparing and contrasting different cultural heritage laws. And in my final year of law school, again, I made sure to extern each semester because I was very, very, very eager to find a job in historic preservation right off the bat. And I knew it would be I knew it would be very difficult to find a job in this field without some sort of previous experience. So in the fall, I interned at the Department of Interior Solicitor's Office and produced several lengthy memos on historic preservation legislative history. In the spring, I interned again at the ACHP, this time at yet another office, the Office of Native American Affairs. I researched and archived foreign legislation, which affirms a sacred site protection for Indigenous peoples. And just after graduation of law school, I had planned to take the bar, but unfortunately I got an offer I couldn't refuse, and I was offered a summer internship in Paris, France, at the International Secretariat of ICOMOS, which is the International Council of Monuments and Sites, but in French. So I evaluated state nominations, that's country nominations for the UNESCO World Heritage List for the 2020 cycle. Just suffice it to say, this was an incredible, incredible experience. I'll share one highlight while I was there. reggae was actually listed on the UNESCO Intangible Heritage List in 2019, and I got to go to the UNESCO building for the celebration, which was amazing. Finally, I mean, I'll conclude by just wishing you all the best of luck. I think this is an amazing time to be an emerging / young professional in this field. I'm genuinely excited for all of you. I guess the last piece of advice I would leave you with is definitely write a lot, right? You know, every time you have an opportunity to write, whether it's as a volunteer or it's for a newsletter piece or, you know, anything you can publish, definitely just write, improve your writing skills. It's really important in this field. So yeah, best of luck to all of you.
Thank you so much, Emily. And that's great advice about writing. Now for our resources panel. Oh, wait, yep, I've missed someone, I'm sorry. Now I'd like to call on Landy Watley. Landy.
Hi, Susan. Thank you. Like all the other panelists, I am so grateful to be here, specifically as a two-time HBCU graduate. Of course, my heart and my prayers are with you all and your families, and we will make it through this. When I think about my trajectory and my background, there's really one word that shapes how I've gotten here today, and that's intentionality. I really started to ask myself 3 questions. Who do I want to be? What do I want my life to look like? And lastly, who can help me get there? The first question of who I want to be, I've always been a storyteller. I've always been an advocate for storytelling, but I didn't really know what that would look like as far as career-wise, right? Of course, as everyone has stated, internships are a great way to figure out what do you want to be, who do you want to be, what you want your life to look like. Honestly, I dated internships every year in undergraduate. I had an internship not just at a different place, but in a different career field, from Cumulus Media, which is a radio, they own radio stations all across the country, to marketing department at a hospital, to interning at a law firm in Memphis. But this helped me to figure out what I want, right? And to figure out, more importantly, sometimes what I didn't want, right? To really think about crafting my life and being intentional about that. You can also build your own windows of opportunities when the internships, of course, as Sterling mentioned, you don't always get those, right? But you can always build your own windows of opportunity through the volunteer work, through organizations on your campus. And undergrad Student Government Association was really huge for me and really impactful, and led to a lot of different experiences that were not only great for professional development, but also personal development. Lastly, this is something that my fellow panelists have also touched on, thinking about the who can help you get there, building meaningful relationships, not just with your professors, talking to them after class, attending those career services events on campuses. Is not just about the grades, right? You, as Sterling stated, as Simone stated, you want to build those relationships, because honestly, if someone asks me what has impacted my career the most, whether it was my grades, of course I had to be prepared, right? And I had to be a good student and be diligent about that. But I would honestly say it was the relationships I built with people who I was intentional about telling them, hey, I think I'm interested in this opportunity. If you know anything, can you let me know? And they did. And that led to literally internships, literally fellowships, this job, which piggybacked off of an internship I had with the NEH, which I got because I was intentional about telling one of my mentors that I was interested in exploring careers outside of academia. Also, when we think about networking and building relationships, think about research conferences. Research conferences were huge for me in graduate school, but at this point, they definitely have undergraduate research conferences. Think about those, because you will not only gain mentors, you'll build lasting friendships that will not only help you in the professional sector, but also the emotional and the mental support that we all need in these trying times. So research conferences are a huge resource as well. Even the Modern Language Association conference, they host a professional information session with MLA people, with people from different fields, and particularly the session on what they call all academic careers really helped me because it opened my eyes to the possibilities. And lastly, it may sound cliche, but believe in yourself and be fearless. In order to be intentional, I had to actually believe that I had the power and the authority to decide who I wanted to be, to decide what I wanted my life to look like, and to build relationships with people that not only supported me in those things, but that were just good for me in general, and vice versa, right? So believe in yourself, be fearless, be intentional, and understand that being intentional is also a process, right? So that would be what I have to say. If you are interested in learning more about the NEH, I will also put my email in the chat.
Thank you so much, Landy. You guys have so much wisdom. Thank you for everything that you've said. Now for our resources panel. Paloma Balazny is the Youth Programs Coordinator at the Cultural Resources Office of Interpretation Education, Cultural Resources, Partnerships and Science at the National Park Service. Erica Hawthorne is the Director of Membership and Communications at Emerging Practitioners in Philanthropy. She also serves on the board of the Arts Administrators of Color Network and provides project management support for leading change makers. She formerly worked as an engagement specialist for the Arts Education Partnership. And Mary Macklem is a senior program officer at the National Endowment for the Humanities. Paloma, would you start?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. I have some slides to share. Oh, can you see my screen?
We can.
Oh, excellent. All right. I'm going to turn off my video. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really honored to be part of this panel. Thank you to the Advisory Council, and thank you everyone for joining today. I am Paloma Balazny, and I work for the National Park Service. I'm the Youth Programs Coordinator for the Washington Office's Cultural Resources, Partnerships, and Science Directorate, and I oversee several nationwide internship and fellowship programs. I'm going to talk a little bit about careers in cultural resources within the Park Service and about some internship opportunities. There are careers for every interest in the Park Service, including careers in the varied fields that make up cultural resources. So the NPS employs historians, architects, lots of museum curators, archivists, archaeologists, and cultural resources specialists or cultural resources program manager. Cultural resources specialist is responsible for overseeing all things cultural resources in their park or in a regional office. They might advise on maintenance of a historic building or working with park collections or ensuring the park is in compliance with the National Historic Preservation Act. So cultural resources specialists do lots of things in their parks or regional offices. Many of our cultural resources professionals work directly with interns, and we know how important internships are. And at the Park Service, we love paid internships. And actually at the Park Service, we only have paid internships because if you're not being paid a stipend, then you're a volunteer. And volunteers are vital to the Park Service. We have a wonderful, robust volunteers in the Parks program. Volunteering is a great way for students to get experience, but I'm going to focus on paid work experience opportunities. I'm going to first explain two broad types of internships. One are federal internships and the other are partner internships. And it's important to understand the difference because it will help in searching for internships. Very briefly, there are 3 internship programs offered by the federal government for students and recent graduates, and those programs are administered by Human Resources. The Park Service does offer positions through these programs, but by far, most internships are offered through partner organizations. And these are some of our partner organizations. The top 3, the Student Conservation Association, American Conservation Experience, Conservation Legacy, there's some really large partners. We have other wonderful partners, and they all offer internships in the Park Service that focus on the humanities. These partners work with parks and programs to develop and administer internship programs and internships. And I often recommend that students looking for internships visit our partner websites because that's where they'll find internship positions listed. And I'm going to highlight briefly several national internship programs that offer internships geared towards students with an academic background or interest in the humanities. And this is the perfect time to tell you about these programs because they are all accepting applications right now. This is the time to apply. So the first program is the Cultural Resources Diversity Internship Program, and I coordinate that in partnership with American Conservation Experience. These internships are summer internships only. We have about 25 across the country. The internships are, again, all paid, and park housing or a housing stipend is provided for all of these. So applications close March 7 for these positions. The Historically Black Colleges and Universities Internship Program, HBCUI, is administered by the Greening Youth Foundation for students or recent graduates of HBCUs. This is also a summer program. They have positions across the country. They also offer a housing stipend or park housing and travel costs. And HBCUI offers not just cultural resources type positions, but internships in a range of fields like communication, natural resources, interpretation, and education. Positions are open now, so check out the Greening Youth Foundation. The National Council for Preservation Education Internship Program is another program I administer in partnership with NCIP. This program offers internships year-round in locations across the country, and positions range from 10 weeks to 7 months. We also have part-time positions because we have a lot of interns who are also students, so they work part-time. And NCIP positions feature all types of cultural resources work. So everything that cultural resources professionals do, we have NCIP interns do. Positions are posted year-round. We have our summer application period is open now. We have an application period in the fall for winter positions. The Latino Heritage Internship Program is administered in partnership with Environment for the Americas. And like HBCUI, it offers a range of positions, not just cultural resources. This is also a summer program. Housing is also provided. An application period is open now. And I also want to mention the Traditional Trades Apprenticeship Program run by the Park Service at its Historic Preservation Training Center in Frederick, Maryland. TTAP provides 20-week experience, hands-on training and experiences in masonry, window restoration, carpentry, just to name a few skills. And there are positions open now at a number of parks across the country offered through ACE and Conservation Legacy. And our partners, all of these partners also offer internships outside of these programs. Parks work with these partners to offer internships, and there are many more than I mentioned today. And the best way to find those is to visit the partner websites. If you go to our youth programs page and hit Work With Us tab, you'll see the list of all the national intern programs and the contact information for those programs. And if there's a specific park or a program that a student is interested in, I often recommend reaching out directly to the park. Sometimes that's a good way to find out if there are internship opportunities or volunteer opportunities at a park. And I recommend calling the park's general number on their website or emailing the general inbox for those questions. And here is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out with any questions.
Thank you so much, Paloma. Now let's turn to Erica. Erica.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for the introduction. Before I dive in, let me adjust my screen for you. Before I dive right into sharing the resources, I want to offer a little bit more context on my background. I am also a graduate of Howard University, like some other panelists we had today. And I studied communication and culture, which even though it wasn't art specific, I knew I eventually wanted to end up in a career in the arts. But at the time, I wasn't as aware of the vast possibilities available for a viable career in the arts. So today I'm excited to learn what I learned through navigating the field and some resources to help others interested in doing that. For me, I've explored many careers in and out of the arts, including working as a teaching artist, interning with the National Endowment for the Arts, serving then as an executive assistant, working in grant making and event planning roles. And what helped me most with navigating a career in the arts was joining a network of like-minded professionals and finding mentors in the types of arts positions I was interested in. So one I especially want to highlight is the Arts Administrators of Color Network. With this organization, I started out as a mentee, became a volunteer, and now serve on the board where we're working through strategic planning to become an anti-racist and anti-oppression arts service organization. I also pursued a master's degree in arts management from American University, where I learned skills in fundraising, project management, marketing, and more. Now I'm serving as the Director of Membership and Communications at an organization that serves emerging practitioners in philanthropy. Through this role, I get to address equitable systems change, which will impact the arts by working with those that fund arts and humanities programs. So now let's dive into the resources. And I'm excited to give you something that you can both use today and you can continue to add to, so those in the audience have an opportunity to share your wisdom as well. On the screen, you should see a Padlet. So here, if you go up to the, there is an add button where you can continue to contribute to this. But the things I want to highlight in our time together are the many networking and membership organizations. As I mentioned, Arts Administrators of Color is a great resource. The Arts Education Partnership is an organization where you can join the network as an individual or an organization committed to advancing arts education. My organization, the Emerging Practitioners of Philanthropy, is in here. We have job boards, professional development opportunities, and all sorts of resources available to you. Under the current job openings, feel free to build this list out. There's all sorts of things already included here and various job boards that you can access. We've also got so many types of careers in the arts. And as I mentioned, when I first entered this field, I wasn't as aware of what the options were. So one thing to remember is even if your academic background or your professional experiences are not directly in the arts, everything is transferable. If you studied fundraising, arts organizations need fundraising directors. They need finance folks. They need human resources folks. So there's so many opportunities to break into the field, even if your degree is not art specific. And if it is art specific, there's all sorts of openings that will use your skill set and create a viable career. So I encourage you to check these resources out. We also have a section on tips for young professionals. So scroll through this, add anything that was really important to you and helped you navigate the field. One thing I really want to highlight that I heard someone else mention was finding mentors that align with your values. Having that safe person that you can bounce ideas off of, that can help you when you're navigating a stressful situation is so important. And you can learn from their experiences and what opportunities they know about that you may not have access to. So again, I encourage you to use the link in the chat, continue to build this page out, and I'll put my contact there as well if you have any questions and want to either get to know each other or learn more about the organizations that I mentioned today.
Thank you so much, Erica. We just had a question asking if the Padlet could be shared with other networks.
Absolutely, reuse it. This is just something I made. Anyone is welcome to repurpose it, add to it, copy it, totally available to you.
Wonderful, thank you. And now I would like to call on Mary Macklin.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's really great to be here, and let me just share my screen slides with you today. Okay, there. You should be able to see a blue screen now, a blue slide. And part of the session today was about professional development, and it's just been great listening to everyone's experiences and resources so far today. I've learned a lot myself. And I wanted to share with you first off, my contact information is here. Please feel free to reach out if I can help you connect with anyone at NEH or you've got some questions, happy to help. And there's also a general questions email box and phone number there as well. You've heard so much about internships today, and so I wanted to share some resources with regards to internships at some of our agencies who are involved today. And as you know, the National Endowment for the Arts is online today with us, and they do offer both unpaid and paid internships. And also for employment, check their website. Also participating today is ACHP, and in addition to the internships that Susan posted in the chat, ACHP offers classroom, webinar, and e-learning professional development trainings on topics relating to Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. And these are all taught by experienced ACHP staff, and many of these are free. Their internship opportunities are open up through February 11th, so please check out the ACHP website. And then the rest of the slides will focus more on the NEH. Here I want to just tell you about the Pathways Internship Program that NEH uses or is involved in. And this program allows students who are currently enrolled in post-secondary educational programs to receive paid work experience in support of the NEH's mission. Our recruitment window for summer interns generally runs mid-December through mid-May, or mid-December through mid-January, pardon me, and interns normally work from late May through early September. So we just had a posting close earlier in January. Vacancy announcements for internships as well as employment, other employment at NEH can be found on the NEH website or at usajobs.gov. And then the last resource I wanted to share with you on this screen is the Humanities Indicators Project. It's a project partially funded by NEH and has been conducted by the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. It's a resource for information on the state of the humanities, and there's a lot of data there pertaining to humanities careers and education. So please feel free to explore that website. Now moving more into professional development opportunities through NEH. NEH offers tuition-free opportunities for higher education faculty through the Institutes for Higher Education Faculty Program. And these institutes bring together teachers, faculty, and expert scholars to deepen understanding of a topic in the humanities and to enrich the capacity for effective scholarship and teaching. These are offered in the summer, generally 1 to 4 weeks, and a stipend is offered to offset some of the costs. Institutes are currently offered online, hybrid, and in person. And you can see there's 3 examples on this slide: Latinx art at the University of Houston, the Civil War archives at Gettysburg College, and others. So we have lots of links. In fact, there's one at Montgomery College in Maryland, also with participation of Howard University, that I wanted to tell you about as well. So, but there's a list of many others. If you look at the link on this screen, and I'll put it in the chat when I'm finished, so that you can look, you can see all the current opportunities there. A similar program for professional development that NEH offers are the Institutes for Advanced Topics in the Digital Humanities. For these as well, participants can be scholars, humanities professionals, and advanced graduate students. Institutes might explore digital scholarly communication and publishing, innovative approaches for engaging public audiences with digital humanities, or analysis and research on the impact of digital media and culture on society, just to name a few examples. And pictured on this screen are several Institutes for Advanced Topics in the Digital Humanities that are being offered this year. You can find more information about these and others through the link listed on the page. And just be aware these change yearly, so check back if you don't see something here that's of interest to you right at the moment. And I should say about both the institutes the Summer Institutes and the Institutes for Advanced Topics, you can also apply to lead one if you have expertise that you would want to share with people who might want to attend. For that, you would apply directly to the NEH, and happy to talk more about that with you if you are interested in learning more about that. And then the last program I just wanted to bring your attention to is the grant program called Humanities Connections. And if you're a faculty member or administrator on campus and you're looking for ways to join the humanities with science, business, or medicine, this might be a grant program of interest to you, particularly because there's a focus on experiential learning for your students. So kind of thinking, about the different topics we've talked about today: career, professional development, and internship kind of opportunities. Through this program, the awards support innovative curricular approaches that foster partnerships with humanities faculty and faculty in social and natural sciences, or possibly pre-service or professional programs, business, nursing, medicine, and so forth. Experiential learning is an intrinsic part of this program. And as an example, NEH made a recent award through this program to Professor Matthew DeForest at Johnson C. Smith University. And that award will support planning for a new academic program, both a major and minor, in digital innovation, and it integrates philosophy and ethics with computer science and digital communication. And again, that involves some intern experiences at local and regional firms for the students. So in conclusion, I hope that these resources will be of interest to you as well. And just to remind you that I'd be very happy to hear from you, and I'll put my email in the chat as well. I appreciate the opportunity today, and good to hear everybody on the panel.
Thank you so much, Mary. Before I say thank you to everyone, I just would like to mention that all of our emails and contact information and website URLs are in the chat. So please feel free to take a minute now to go through and copy anything you might want to keep if you want to get in touch with anyone. I'd like to thank all of our participants today for joining us and hearing much more about all of the resources that are available and all of the jobs that are available in the arts, humanities, and history fields. And I would especially like to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. I'm constantly impressed by what everyone is doing, and it was a joy to hear about all of you. I don't think we have any questions. So at this time, I will say thank you and hope that you will join us again in the future for another one of our webinars.